Yes, indeed. Yes, indeedio. We are here, back in the building. How y'all doing? What's going on? Hopefully, you are just as excited for what's to come as I am. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller with Soul Expression. Welcome back to your real life. And there we go. And of course, we have such a grand I'm just trying to I'm trying to share this link with somebody real quick as I'm going live. I was like, oh, it's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock, people. Let me uh where where'd the time go? um but oops, here we go. Live now, good people. Boom. Oops, that's a semicolon and not a colon. Look at me. Look at me not typing correctly. Okay. So we are here to dive back into the religion of monetary value. We're on part, I hope we're on part four. Are we on part five? We might be on part five. Hold on, let me see. No, okay, we're on part four. Good, 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 good. We are on part four of this series. It is quite it's becoming one of my favorite topics to cover. Just know before we get into anything that if you are here, you are in for real conversations about natural law, religion, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We talk about money, anarchy, we talk about culture, and how mankind is manipulated by forces that do not have our best interests at heart because they are likely completely evil. But even though we talk about religion, even though we mention um, faith systems under a little bit of scrutiny, we are not bashing faith systems on this channel. Okay, we're not calling people names for having or following a religion. We are simply examining the psychological affects, effects, causes of the stories that we have the most faith in this life, the ones we have the most stake in, and and how those stories help shape society. Now, that examination has to sit alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. Government is slavery, good people. And the question we have to keep returning to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of one's inner storyteller and how it works. Now, if any of that makes you uncomfortable, makes you mad, or makes you want to leave, just know, okay, just know, although you are encouraged to stay and maybe confront some of those feelings, but to have a good time, okay, to explore these topics with me, you are also welcome to leave after you like the video. No leaving before liking the video. Okay, that's the rules. You gotta, that check the man upstairs. He put it in the Bible. Okay, it's right in the book of Soul, chapter 3, verse 17. Thou shalt not leave the website or the app without liking the video on part 4. Okay? It's right there. Just check it out. Yeah, let's get right into everything we need to get into. Let me pull this back up actually. I want you to look right in the middle of this picture here. You see you have a ship. You have a ship, and behind the ship you have what's called the wake of the ship. The wake of the ship is loosely defined as two wave patterns that start off as somewhat parallel, but they kind of make a Y shape, that are formed by a ship moving through water at the tail of the ship, at the very end, sort of right centered at the butt of the ship. And these two waves, are pushed outward in sort of opposite directions. And even if the ship is turning or whatever, they sort of, they go opposite from each other. And on my picture, The ship represents the now, and the two wave patterns that are being pushed in opposite directions behind the ship as the ship moves forward are representing the past and the future. And this is the real way that anybody, any human being, experiences time. Time is only experienced as from now to the past or from now to the future, right? And it's not you're now and you're stagnant. Obviously, that wouldn't be possible. So the future is actually behind you. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that the changes that will happen in the now will only start to happen behind you and you are suddenly stagnant. It means that the changes that happen only happen now. They don't happen later. And when you examine the potential for your future, the future, or someone else's future, you are experiencing the image and maybe audio of a thought form, and then examining your memory of that experience in the now of the past. So the future is left behind by the now, just like in the wake of the ship, and the past. All right. So, with that being said, let us dive in proper to the religion of monetary value part 4. And this I call this episode The Debt You Can't Pay. Okay. What up, y'all? Today I want to start with some imagery. Minimize mimicry and reevaluate the history. The religion of monetary value so vividly removes you from your place in the symphony. And I just want you to realign. Alan Watts used this the wake of the ship image, and it's never really left the back of my mind in my philosophical moments ever since I first kind of heard him explain it, seen it on the video. And it connects directly to everything that we're going to examine today. So I want you to kind of hold it in your mind before we go anywhere. The ship represents the now, the present moment, the only real point of contact between existence and experience. And matter of fact, let me pull up an image that we can look at together. This is a good one. This needs to be zoomed out a lot. There we go. Okay, boom. And then I just have to remove this. Click here, share screen. Bop, 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 skadoosh. Put this over here. And then come back to the live. Add to the stage. Sorry, it takes like 17 steps to do to do one thing. But boom, there we go. Now, so yeah, so keep this image kind of in mind. The ship represents the now. All right, the present moment. It's right here. The only real point of contact between existence and experience. The now. The rear of the ship, this guy right here, back here. The rear of the ship, at the tip of the ship's wake, the water starts to separate. Right, as you can see. It sends, that's what I didn't do. There we go, boom. It sends waves out in opposite directions. Oh, also, click, clap, bam. Now I'm done. Now I'm done setting up for the day. It sends waves out in opposite directions, spreading outward behind the vessel in what would be parallel lines if not for the laws of physics and the nature of waves. Instead, they fan out, forming an open triangle, a Y shape, if you will, widening as it goes, fading as it gets further from the ship or as the ship gets further from each point. That Y shape is time, both arms of time, past and future. One arm is the past, everything that has happened trailing behind the now, getting less defined, less specific, less distinguishable from the surrounding water the further back you go. The other arm is the future, everything anticipated, everything feared, everything planned, also trailing behind the now, also fading the further you get from the now, also becoming one with the larger body of water the further it goes out, practically speaking. Now, that doesn't mean in practices of visualization or some sort of transcendental meditation, um, some sort of practice where you're trying to visualize a specific thing, that gets more and more unclear the further out from your life that you do. No, it's not that. It's not about an exercise where you're told to imagine a specific thing on purpose. That is an act of creation, but an act of prediction, of sort of logically following what may happen in the future and making predictive conclusions. That process is just like trying to use your past to go further from into the past to understand something, and you're trying to use factual past events. Okay. And here's what Alan Watts is pointing at with this image. The further you get from the ship, the further you get from the present moment of consciousness, the more the definition dissolves, the more the specific detail fades into the general pattern, the more the individual waves, become indistinguishable from the ocean they are a part of. The wake does not drive the ship drives the wake. The now is the only cause. The past and the future are its trail. So hold that image. We are going to need it where we're going in today's episode. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to really get into it. Before we even dive into the religion of monetary value material for today, there is something very potent, very relevant to our current human condition that sits underneath the other material I'm going to go over today regarding the debt you can't pay. I want to name something. In a world where everything is already decided for you, right? Where the stories are pre-written and the products are pre-selected and the political options are pre-filtered, the cultural values are pre-distributed. What makes you a non-player character, an NPC, is blind obedience to everything going on around you. Even if you choose your niche, if that niche was 100% provided to you, you're still an NPC. Blindly saying yes to all of the decisions that you're not even really making. That is the definition of an NPC, but in real life. Not necessarily stupidity, because you could be independent of just blind obedience to society and still be a little stupid. Not a lack of information. We are obviously drowning in available information, and we all have supercomputers in our pockets, right? But the automatic yes to whatever society is doing, whatever the government is doing, um, whatever the big old NGOs are doing, regulating, whatever, you know, we're going cashless, you know, whatever Whatever anybody's doing, just yes, 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 yes. That makes you an NPC. And here's why that matters for this episode. The religion of monetary value and the religion of man's authority are the mother and father of all religion that we established in part 3 of this series, which is the video that you should send people from this channel for right now. If they want to come over here with an understanding of where I'm coming from, send them the religion of monetary value part 3. So yeah, it's a great starting point for them to understand certain things, and then tell them, and then go back and just watch the playlist from start to finish. But the religion of monetary value and the religion of man's authority only function at the scale that they currently function because enough people are running automatic yes in their inner storyteller, driving their behavior as an automatic yes to whatever's going on. We have a sorting function in our psychology, in our inner storyteller, that files information into categories that generally point back to good for me, bad for me. We file the money concept into the real and required drawer in our sorting function. We file government into the legitimate and inevitable because of human nature drawer, right? And the yes to whatever society is doing happens at the sorting function level. Because they come in the costume of government, we automatically say yes, because government is legitimate and inevitable. Because it touches the concept of money, we say yes automatically, because money is associated with real and required for projects to get done, for nature to be in our favor. Faster than thought, faster than evaluation, before any conscious decision has been made, we are nodding yes. What makes you you in a world where everything is supposed to be chosen for you? What makes you your authentic, original self? At minimum, as a starting point, is your capacity to say no. And not as a rebellion for rebellion's sake, right? Not as a contrarian, but as the exercise of the only thing that distinguishes a conscious being from a mechanism, from a cog in a machine running a program someone else wrote for it. The no is where the self actually shows up. The automatic yes, when it is running below conscious awareness, is where the self is absent from the picture, the authentic self. And the debt imprisonment argument that we are going to examine today, the debt you can't pay, is one of the clearest illustrations of what an automatic yes produces in society when it is running in an entire population simultaneously without being challenged. The debt you can't pay. Let's get into it. Do I have another image? Do I have another image? Well, first, let me share this again. The wake, the NPC, and the debt you can't pay. On the left of this picture, you see it says a fictional system, a real punishment. What does that mean? Well, that means that government operates on the presumption of agreement, right? The presumption that there is some sort of consent going on, because there's no natural thing in life or human life that dictates that a government be formed, established, and operate the way governments operate or have operated for the last 5, 6 to maybe 15,000 years. Instead, we have a mind control system that imposes these concepts over reality. And the financial system, okay, the system built on the religion of monetary value, is 100% a belief system operating within that consensual agreement, right? Not to give any legitimacy or reality to uh, the notion that we are giving them consent. We're not, not to do what they're doing, but just to put it simply, the system itself is fictional, and the punishment that we get for shucking the system or breaking one of its rules, maybe accidentally, is very real. People die, people are caged, and their freedoms are taken. So, here is the question that most people never ask about debtor's prison and its legal consequences and the legal consequences of unpaid debt. If money is a fiction, if it is a symbol system representing value rather than actual value itself, what actually happens when debt, fake value, goes unpaid? Not what the legal system says happens, but what actually happens in reality. Let's take a look. A symbol does not transfer from one accounting column to another, meaning a digital amount does not transfer from one accounting ledger entry to another accounting ledger entry, which would serve to balance the books or serve some step in the balancing of the books. Other than that, nothing else happens. That's it. A symbol does not go from one end of an accounting column, okay, a record keeping, to the other, which would balance the books. That's the only thing that doesn't happen. No physical thing is destroyed. No actual resource disappears from the face of the world. The lumber is still lumber. The food is still food. The labor is still labor. The potential labor is still potential labor. The water is still water. Right? What failed to move is some numbers or symbols on a ledger. And the legal system treats that imbalance, that failure, the failure of a number to move between columns in a ledger, as harm serious enough to justify caging, possibly torturing, and maybe even killing a human being, depending on what government and who's the ruler at the time. Removing them from their family, their community, removing any productive capacity that they have besides serving the state, placing them in a controlled location where the state bears the actual material cost of housing, feeding, and supervising these people, which in many cases costs more than the real resources that the debt was, that the obligation was for in the first place. The only way that makes that situation makes logical sense, the only way it holds together as a coherent system, is if you accept the fiction that the symbol and the real, the fiction that the symbol and the real thing are the same. Right? The only way that it makes sense that a debt going unpaid is punishable by caging is if we have in mind that the money is just as real as the labor or the resource or the project, the sweat equity, the real life that still can happen, even though the books aren't balanced by this money game thing. The story told about transactions, that they are naturally tied to physical reality. and that money moving is the same thing as value moving, is what makes imprisonment of a debtor feel like justice rather than what it actually is, which is just immorality. The enforcement apparatus of a fictional system using a very real punishment to protect the credibility of the fiction is mind control. And the deeper layer makes this manipulation very crucial to understand rather than just glaze over because you heard some words about it in a podcast one day. The system cannot admit that the money is fictional because the admission that money is fictional or that there's no such thing as monetary value, right? I guess money is real, but there's no such thing as monetary value. Any value attributed to money is always fake, no matter what form the money takes, right? That admission would dissolve the authority of the contract on its face. Every debt, every obligation the legal system enforces on behalf of the monetary religion nullified. The fiction has to be maintained from their not just as a convenient story, but as a legally enforced reality imposed over truth. Imposed on top of the truth? I don't know how to say. The imprisonment of debtors is not an incidental feature of the religion of monetary value. It is one of the primary mechanisms by which the fiction is protected from examination. Oh, no, that's not too close. There we go. The punishment is real. The harm it claims to avenge is not real. Nobody was harmed. Nothing was lost. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was stolen that was in use. um, and that's the con at its most honest expression. Now, moving on to a different part of my little image here. Um, right in the middle, in that bottom strip, you see a clay tablet from ancient Sumer. It says, use history to study morality. The pattern is the testimony. What we usually do is use morality to try and study history and attribute morality to moments, names, and dates in history rather than looking at the themes of what historical cultural trends produced and the karmic consequences of those cultural trends to study morality by using history. A methodological uh, trend that runs underneath all of this is the temptation, right? The temptation, especially when you're building an argument about systems that go back like thousands of years, temptation to put so much emphasis on getting the exact names and dates correct, memorizing the specific chronology of the events, and being able to cite the precise year and precise scribe and precise king that did or wrote the thing. I want to suggest that this temptation is the wrong relationship to history for the purposes of what we're doing here on this channel. And let me state this plainly. We should not be using morality to study history. We should be using history to study morality. When you use morality to study history, you're selecting which events matter based on whether they confirm or challenge a moral framework that you already hold. The history becomes a decoration for a predetermined conclusion. It becomes a fact retrieval system that a court of law uses where specific admissible facts are assembled to make a case that was already kind of decided. When you use history to study morality, which is what we should be doing, you're asking, what does this pattern, observed across multiple civilizations, multiple eras, reveal about how moral choices and their consequences actually operate in the universe? The moral insight emerges from the pattern rather than being imposed on the pattern. And the further back you go in history, you cannot avoid this. The further back you go, the less you can trust the specific details anyway. Not because the past didn't happen, but because the recording of the past, and we talked about this on previous episodes, the writing down of the events and the names and the dates and the specific details was done by people that had interests in what the record said, right? It's a very, very, very common phrase that the conquerors write the history books, and a lot of different variations of that same phrase, right? History is written by the conquerors or something like that. People who could write when most people could not, people who were working for the institutions whose authority depended on how the story was told. A court of law has rules of evidence. There's cross-examination of witnesses and, plaintiffs and defendants. There is discovery. There is a structured process for testing the reliability of specific factual claims before they are used to make consequential decisions. The historical record has almost none of that. Unless you're talking about very specific things, like maybe like scripture may have some of that. Um, but general history, we just have a whole bunch of books, right? Some of which are considered official and funded by the Rockefeller family and Rothschilds and all of them, and some are just written by historians, and some are written by people who live through specific events, and then they die, and decades later their book is now history, right? Their testimony. The scribe who recorded the debt tablet in ancient Sumer cannot be cross-examined. The manuscript copied by the monks in the 10th century about events from the 3rd century has no chain of custody that we can verify in the same way that we could do with information coming out in 2024. The selection of which documents survived and which didn't. The selection of which documents made it through to the museums and which did not was not made by everybody who is studying the history today. It was made by people who had interests that we can only partially reconstruct, which means the appropriate relationship to the historical specificity, especially at distances of thousands of years, is epistemic humility about the detail combined with genuine attention to the patterns. The general chronology does matter. The order of which the religion of monetary value produced the governing authorities matters. The broad arc of when things happen relative to each other, right? That carries real information. And what the pattern tells us is always reliable. What the specific names and dates tell us becomes increasingly unreliable the further back in history we go. And the more, the heavier of an interest in the people who are writing the history is, the less trustworthy the information is on its face. And the pattern is this. As long as there has been a system that concentrates resource allocation in the hands of a small class of people who control the rules and form of that system, there has been a governing authority serving as its enforcement apparatus every time, everywhere, without exception in the historical record. That's the pattern. That's the one of the patterns that teaches us about morality, right? We should be using history to study morality. Every time the religion of monetary value is accepted, implemented in a society, it is enforced by a state of some kind. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern visible across at least 5,000 years. Because we have 5,000-year-old clay tablets from ancient Sumer that are credit debt based economy IOU notes, basically, and bills of exchange, securities, if you will. I'm kind of loosely using that, but they had securities back then. 5,000 years of the Securities Exchange Commission. Gotta holler at the Treasury to get you some clay tablets. That's the pattern across 5,000 years of human civilization that tells you something true about how these systems work and why they were constructed. So use history to study morality. The themes are the testimonies. The pattern is the verdict. The moral insight is what you do with it right now in the present moment of consciousness, where all of this information actually is alive. Now, what's in the wake of the religion of monetary value? Let me bring the ship image back because it resolves something very important. Boom. Oh, did I? I think I closed that tab. Yeah, there we go. Boom and boom. Sorry, I gotta put it back again, bring it back to the thing, and then share screen. Bop. Add to stage. There we go. Okay. Add it to the stage. Why won't you add it? Oh, I gotta remove this one. There we go. Okay. Y'all can see this? Okay. I think I made it a little bit bigger. So, what's in the wake of the religion of monetary value? The religion of monetary value feels ancient. It feels inevitable and fixed because it is in the wake. It trails behind the now of every person alive today as something that was already there when they arrived, already normalized, already filed into the appropriate drawers of the inner storyteller before they had any language to ask what it is or to ask what was in them. But the wake does not drive the ship, luckily. The ship drives the wake. The religion of monetary value does exist now as a present state of collective consciousness organized around specific stories about what money is and what authority is. It is not the past determining the present, it is the present consciousness of enough people maintaining a specific set of stories simultaneously that collective consciousness, and that collective consciousness organized around the mother and father of all religion is the ship. The 5,000 years, 15,000 years of history trailing behind it is the wake. Which means, and this is the most important thing that I want to leave you with today, the religion of monetary value does not continue because of what happened 5,000 years ago. The religion of monetary value continues because of what is happening right now in the inner storytellers of everybody participating in it. The past is not producing the present. The present consciousness is organizing the past and producing the experience of continuity. And the present consciousness can organize itself differently than it has in the past. not slowly, not across centuries. The way that the whole snake moves, the way that the sound arrives from nothing into meaning all at once. Present consciousness can reorganize its worldview or its participation in the religion of monetary value. The automatic yes that keeps the fiction alive is not a permanent feature of human consciousness, necessarily. It is a pattern being run in the now that can be interrupted right now by the same presence that installed it. The site of the trauma and the automated response and the change all exist in the present moment, the potential for change. Same speed, same mechanism, same place. The NPC, non player character, is also not a fixed category. It is simply a description of what the automatic yes makes someone act like. And the no, examined, costly, consistent no to what the system tells you to do, is available in the same now that the yes has been running the show. Money is a symbol. The symbol represents energy, human labor, human attention, human creative capacity, and or the movement of electricity, water, earthly resources. Money represents energy, but it is not energy itself. The imprisonment of a debtor protects the symbol by using a real punishment to enforce a fictitious symbol. The historical record, examined for its patterns rather than its specific names and dates, shows that this arrangement has served the interests of the people who controlled the symbol from the very first clay tablet. And the population maintaining the arrangement today is not doing so because the past is forcing them to do it. The past does not show up and force you to reenact it. They are doing so because the present state of collective consciousness is organized around the stories that make the arrangement feel like reality rather than choice, in my opinion. Change the consciousness, and you change the stories. And the wake changes behind the ship the moment that the ship changes direction. That's not pure or mere idealism. That's causality, baby. Causality that actually runs the story when you follow it honestly to its source. The ship is the now. The now is yours. And now the question is, what story are you willing to live? Please let me know in the comments, good people. I would love to engage with you on this very thing here. And also, please let me just make sure. Yeah. And then this should be good. Sorry, just had to make sure of something really fast. You guys make it so fun to do this podcast when you come comment something, or you send me a text or a DM and you're like, yo, good lesson, soul. I learned this, and this. It really makes my day. Helps me keep going and keep doing this thing. So feel free to engage. Please like the video. I heard you may get a free scoop of your favorite ice cream if you like the video. Whether or not that happens in the dream world or in the real world, we have yet to do that experiment. But I'm not gonna like my own video because that's really corny. So I need you to run that experiment for me. You know what I'm saying? And I love you guys.